Today we're in Munich and we're going to take a walk along the route of the famous Beer Hall Putsch that happened in November 1923 right here in Munich. And along the way we're going to take a look at some incredible now and then photos. In 1923, Germany was in an inflation crisis, and some extremist groups saw an opportunity to exploit the crisis that the Weimar Republic government had found itself in. One person who saw such an opportunity was the head of the National Socialists in Germany, a man by the name of Adolf Hitler. By November 1923, Hitler and his associates had concocted a plan to seize power from the Bavarian government. From there, they intended to launch a wider revolution against the Weimar government. Their plan involved kidnapping Gustav von Kahr, the state commissioner for Bavaria, and two other conservative politicians. They also planned on using Heinrich Ludendorff, the right-wing general from World War I, as kind of a figurehead for their cause. That brings us to this place here in the centre of Munich. Now this is now a cultural centre. The whole place has been redeveloped. But in 1923 this was the site of the Bürgerbraukeller Beer Hall, and it was right here that Hitler intended to launch his plan. He had initially approached von Kahr to lead the march on Berlin, but when von Kahr started to back away from those plans, Hitler decided to push on without him. And when Hitler heard that von Kahr was going to be here at the Bürgerbraukeller Beer Hall addressing a large crowd, he decided to make his move, and he showed up here with hundreds of members of his National Socialist Party. They surrounded the beer hall, charged in there, and demanded that they were going to start to seize power. Hitler entered the main room and fired a gunshot into the air and declared it was the start of the revolution. Von Kahr and two of his associates were hurried into a back room and they called Ludendorff, who came down to the Bürgerbraukeller Beer Hall here to get involved as part of the plan. When Ludendorff arrived here, he supported Hitler and convinced three of the Bavarian leaders to join the cause and lead a march against the government. Now, this is where Hitler made a mistake or a poor judgment call, and he actually left the Bürgerbrau Beer Keller feeling like he had done what he needed to do and he had some other business to attend to. Now, the problem was that whilst he was gone, Ludendorff, for whatever reason, let those Bavarian senior leaders leave the hall. And really it was at that fairly early stage that as a result of that, and people were no longer entrapped and they were kind of let to go on their way, the plan started to fizzle out a little bit. And perhaps more importantly, the state authorities were alerted to what was going on. The next morning, the 9th of November 1923, Hitler and his SA marched on Munich on what they thought was going to be a triumphant march to seize power. Unfortunately, by that stage, Ludendorff had called the police and told them what was going on, and the plan, the triumphant march, was not going to go quite the way that Hitler and his associates wanted it to. So in a second we're going to head off and we're going to go on the route of that march through Munich, and we're going to look at a few of the key sites. But there's a couple of quick bits to show you right here at the site of the Bürgerbrau Beer Keller before we move on. Now, as well as this being the site of the famous beer hall that was here, there's also another important event that happened here. Now, we've got a little bit of noise in the background here, so you guys are going to have to bear with me on this one. But on the 8th of November 1939, Hitler was in this place giving a speech. Okay, so that noise just got worse and worse. So you've got future voiceover, Rob. Trust me, if you ever want to make a YouTube video, there will always be someone with a power tool. So we were here to tell the story about how on the 8th of November 1939, Hitler was here to give a speech, and a man by the name of George Elser was planning to assassinate him. George Elser had hatched a plan to place a bomb in the pillar by the podium where Hitler was to give his speech, and it was going to detonate when he was speaking.
Unknown to George Elser, Hitler had had to change his plans that evening. Fog had been forecast, possibly preventing him from flying back to Berlin the next morning. With that in mind, Hitler had decided to return to Berlin the same night by his private train. That meant he was going to have to cut his speech short, and so he left the hall at 9:07 p.m, 13 minutes before Elser's bomb exploded at 9:20 p.m. By that time, Hitler and his entourage had left the Burgerbrau Keller. The bomb still exploded, it caused extensive damage, and it did kill 7 people, but Hitler had escaped. Now, here at the site of the Burgerbrau Keller, they have a memorial to George Elser in the floor. Although the building's been redeveloped, the memorial is still there. Now, unfortunately for Elser, he was arrested at the Swiss border trying to escape a couple of days after the explosion. He was imprisoned for several years, and then he was moved to the Dachau concentration camp, and he was executed there in 1945, not long before the camp was liberated. It really makes you think, that one. You have to imagine if Elser's attempt had been successful and Hitler had been killed before the war had even really started. I wonder how things would have developed from that point on. Okay, so back to past Robin Munich so that we can carry on with this walk.
So the first now and then photo we've got, and I apologise for the background noise, guys. So during one of the commemoration marches that the Nazis used to do, every year they would do a commemoration march along the route of the Beer Hall Putsch. And on the morning of that march in 1938, right here at this site, we've got a famous photo that was taken right here. So this is, you might recognise, that is Hermann Goering on the right, and the man himself, Adolf Hitler, on the left, preparing for that commemoration march in 1938, right here outside the Burgerbrau Keller. Now, before we start along this walk and we start looking at these now and then photos, I think it is really important to position that this is not a celebration of those photos. This is not a commemoration march. Now, some of the photos we're going to look at are taken on commemoration marches because the National Socialists did one of those every year on the 9th of November in order to celebrate the actual attempted Beer Hall Putsch and the march that they made that day. We are not here to do a commemoration march, and we're not celebrating what happened. We're just going to look at the history and the story because I think it's important to do that and learn what happened in events like this. So as the column left the Burgerbrau Keller, they reached here, and we're on Ludwigsbruck Bridge. And as they came across here, we've got a now and then photo that was taken right here on the commemoration march in 1934. So that's the photo which we're going to take a look at now. Now, as they reached further across the bridge, they would have passed this place here behind me. This is the Deutsch Museum. Now, we've got a load of construction and roadworks going on here, so you guys are going to have to work with me on this one because I can't get the same angle. But here is a now and then photo that was taken as they crossed the bridge here during the commemoration march in 1937. Now, the cool piece to note when you look at the photo is if you look at the Deutsch Museum, up on the corner up here, you've got the big eagle, and you'll see those are there in 1937 and still there today. The difference being that the eagle was decorated at the time with some slightly different symbols and flags that obviously we do not see on display there today.
Okay, so we had sirens this time, so you guys have got voiceover Rob again. So as the group moved further across the bridge, here is another then and now photo, and you can see the building in the background there is the same today.
So after crossing the two bridges, the column came through this place right here. Now we're actually now at the Isar Gate. That's this structure here behind me, and they carried on past here and then down this road in this direction here. And there is a cool photo taken here during one of the commemoration marches of the guys walking out of here, which is the next now and then photo that we're going to take a look at. So I'm now stood on a road called the Residenzstrasse. This is just outside the square where the Odeonplatz and the Feldenhall Memorial is there, which is where we're going to finish up, because it is right at this spot here, near enough where I'm stood, or just in front of where I'm stood, where things were going to start going pretty bad for the guys as they marched down here on their trek towards the centre of Munich. So it was right around here behind me where the men on the march were going to run into a substantial police cordon right here. They were going to be held up here for a while, but then things were going to escalate pretty rapidly, and gunshots were exchanged. There were shots fired in both directions, and that actually resulted in the death of 15 of the National Socialist men who were marching along here. Also 4 police officers were killed, and 1 bystander was killed as well here. Now, during that chaos, Hitler himself actually managed to escape. He managed to slip away, but he was arrested 2 days later. Now, on the future commemoration marches through the 1930s, the men on those commemoration marches would always stop here in the same place to commemorate the place where they were stopped on the march. And there is a photo taken just here during one of those commemoration marches, which we're going to look at now. This one is quite a sinister photo, and I actually thought about including this one in the video, but I think it's an important one to see because it reminds us of exactly what went on here and what happened. Okay, so this is the spot where the guys were stopped on that march as they came through here. This is the spot of a very sinister photo that was taken during one of the commemoration marches, and as I said, I hesitated about showing this one because I don't like what it depicts, frankly, but I think it's an important thing to do, so I'm going to show you. So right here in this spot, this photo was taken. There we go. So right here on this spot is where the Beer Hall Putsch march was stopped in its tracks. But there is one more place that we're going to go take a look at, just up here. So we've just moved around the corner into the actual Odeonplatz square. Where the march was stopped is just down in that alley there behind me. But I still wanted to come out here to the square itself because there are loads of interesting now and then photos that were taken right here in this square. But there's one particular photo which I wanted to share with you. So this isn't a photo that was taken in the 1920s or the 1930s. This is actually a photo that was taken right here in this square in 1914. So on the 2nd of August 1914, during the outbreak of the First World War, crowds gathered here in the square to celebrate that announcement or cheer on that announcement. And right here on the 2nd of August, a man by the name of Heinrich Hoffmann took a photo from the top of the memorial here, looking across the crowds cheering on that announcement. And later on it was noticed, or a face was picked out from the crowd of a man in the crowd here in the photo cheering on that announcement. Now there's been some discussion or maybe even argument about whether or not that photo is authentic, but generally, as I've researched it myself, it seems that it's quite likely that it is. Now, unfortunately, the photo itself was taken from the top of the memorial, and I can't get up there, so we're going to have to show you as best as angle as we can. But here is a photo taken right here in Odeonplatz on the 2nd of August 1915 by Heinrich Hoffmann, and you will notice in that face, kind of picked out from the crowd, is the face of Adolf Hitler in the crowd here cheering on that announcement from 1914. Now, as I said, it's up for debate if maybe that photo was created as a propaganda tool, but it seems as though there's a good chance that it is authentic, and that photo was taken right here in 1914. So Heinrich Hoffmann would have been stood up here on the edge of the memorial, overlooking the square here, but here is the photo that he took that day from a higher perspective than me, but looking in this direction. So this is what the square looks like today in 2023, and this is what it looked like in 1914. And you can see, picked out with the white circle there in the crowd, is the face of the man himself. 2nd of August 1914, right here. So that just about rounds us off. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm following along the route of the march from the Beer Hall Putsch and looking at some of the now and then photos that were taken during the commemoration marches. As I said, it's not a celebration of those things. It's about understanding the history of those events and what happened here. And it's certainly interesting to see those now and then comparisons. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, do me a favor, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you want to stick around on the channel and see some future videos. If you enjoy the content that I'm making and maybe you want to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon page. That's linked in the description below. But in the meantime, we're off from here towards Salzburg and then Berchtesgaden, and we've got loads more cool videos to come. I'm going to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.